Hey everybody, wanted to do a quick video on the eve of Chris's final court hearing. First of all, the call to action first, because I'll forget it otherwise. I recently completed a Chris Chan concept album called Nowhere Land. It's available on all major streaming services. It's been a labor of love for the better part of this year, and it's been getting a very positive response, which I really do appreciate. Everybody that's listening to it and everybody that's been getting into it. And I knew that it would garner some attention. I did not realize just how much attention it would get. So if you haven't heard it already, please check it out, and I look forward to hearing what you think of it. Anyway, I want to talk briefly about one thing going into this. There was yet another cryptically worded letter that went to these new people that Chris is in touch with, and this one's heavily redacted. However, something that a lot of people have been speculating on is that he says these new people are going to help him build a Sonichu base, whatever that means. And he believes fervently that he will be getting out very soon. So this is concerning to me because basically what people think the Sonichu base is going to be is some sort of website or something for him to sell his artwork out of and that kind of thing. And that is the third worst possible outcome. The first worst possible outcome is that he ends up being homeless. The second worst possible outcome is that he ends up in the custody of one of the more demented weens that ends up just using him as a plaything and a torture device. Someone to inflict torture on, rather. So this is the third worst option, and the third worst option is he goes back home or goes somewhere else where he's able to have internet access and resume his interactions with the world at large and continue to be assisted in his ongoing ridiculous shenanigans by people who somehow think they're doing the right thing in this situation. That is absolutely absurd. Chris Chan does not need more people feeding into his delusions. He does not need more toys. He does not need more playtime. The hope here, I think, for people that are, for the people who aren't just watching him crash and burn for the fun of it, I think for people that are actually concerned for the moral high ground to prevail in this situation, people have been concerned about whether or not Chris is going to, whether or not Chris is going to be able to go back to business as usual, or if he's finally going to be put in a situation where he can be completely and properly removed from society. In a way that will not just removing him from society like he is now. And this is interesting because, I've been reading on the various forums, a lot of people have been saying, well, Chris isn't getting away, he's not getting away scot-free on this. He's had to spend a year of his life in jail, and that alone serves as a punishment, or that alone should be punishment, that kind of thing. Well, there's a couple of issues with that. One is that Chris's own life is very sedentary. He has had basically a technologically regressed version of the life that he's already been living, which is to sit on his ass, play with whatever toys he can find, and communicate with the what I call the cult of cringe, the people that are so morbidly fascinated with him and everything. And that has basically continued. Posting on social media and YouTube has been replaced by writing letters. Writing writing the Sonichu comics has been replaced by drawing pictures. The playing video games has been replaced by solitaire. Watching TV has been replaced by listening to a radio. So not that much has changed, except that he's been bored. I am not saying this out of any kind of desire to see Chris punished. I'm not hoping for Chris to be punished. I'm hoping for Chris to be removed from society and put in some kind of assisted living program. That kind of program might actually help him not just get out of the madness that is his life as it is connected to the internet and to the weens and to all of these people, but also to get out, also to disconnect from all of the toxic patterns that he's found himself in that he cannot get himself out of. And so in that regard, in that regard, something like an assisted living program could actually help him find, to whatever limited level he's able to comprehend it, an assisted living program like that might be able to help him find some sense of purpose and meaning in this life, some sense of inner fulfillment that he might realize on some dim level, the greater sense of purpose that has been lost to him, because his condition hinders him in understanding a lot of things, but there are beliefs he has which he has learned and which have been ingrained and which can therefore be removed, and those are the beliefs that were put in there by his parents, the beliefs that the beliefs that make him arrogant and entitled, the beliefs that make him blame everybody but himself for his problems and that sort of thing. All of those things are the result of Bob and Barb. And there's potential that he could find some kind of fulfillment and purpose in life doing something of value and finally learning the difference between doing something of value and being just morbidly introverted into his own self and his own navel gazing. He might have that basic moment, but he's got to be taken away from all of this madness completely. He's got to be taken away from it, and he's got to learn to live the life of he's really needs to learn to live the kind of life that a simpleton would have learned to live before the internet and all of this madness, all of the madness of social media and devices like the one I'm recording into right now. Before all of that came along, he needs to learn he needs to learn that version of life. And that version of life will probably be found, planting carrots or something, or doing some kind of agricultural work or something like that. I don't know, but something simple like that. He can, if he could live that monastic monk-like existence in his life, that's what he needs. That's what would be good for him. Because otherwise, if Chris returns to business as usual, I don't know if you guys can tell, but the crazy shit he does keeps escalating. There's not a baseline that he returns to. He continues to escalate. He continues to get worse, behaving in a socially awkward manner at the mall gives way to being banned from establishments and being banned from businesses all over his town. And, arguing with people gives way to assaulting people, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. he starts he starts going about, and no matter any time people try to do something nice to help him, he inevitably finds a way to screw it up. Like with I've been watching the recent episodes of the Geno Sam documentary, and he's been, it's getting into the things where Chris was going to these conventions and kissing people and ultimately getting thrown out for kissing people and not really understanding what was wrong with what he was doing. So he goes into sexually assaulting people and on and on and on. And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. There's not a baseline that he'll return to or that he can be relied upon to maintain. There's no way to say that this is that what happened with Barb is a one-time thing. Once he gets the idea that he can do something, he keeps finding more and more wilder and wilder manifestations of how to do it. And because he's been allowed to live his entire life as a completely undisciplined child. And so returning him to that existence, not only is it not what he needs, but whoever these people are that are going to help enable him in that, mark my words, whatever he does next that is even more reprehensible than raping his own mother, whatever he does next, you will bear a degree of the guilt in that for what he does, for enabling him, for trying to return him to this life and trying to return him to this life of ridiculous pseudo fame and everything like that. So, Chris is amazingly good at skating by on, in the eyes of the law, skating by, I guess, on the basis of being kind of weirdly adorable. So, this thing, you think about it, anyone else who had a rap sheet that included multiple accounts of attempted vehicular manslaughter, multiple restraining orders and banishments from one public facility after another, assault and battery, illegal discharge of a weapon, disorderly conduct over and over again, all of these things that he is reprimanded for and made to face legal action for over and over again. Anyone else who had that kind of rap sheet, if they were believed to be any kind of functioning adult, and they were then presented to the court having sexually assaulted their elderly mother, they would throw the book at him. And that's the thing. He's probably going to skate. Now, I say this clarifying again that I don't want him to go back to jail. I don't want him to go to prison or anything like that. I want to see him in assisted living. One of the things I've been considering back and forth is whether or not he should be registered as a sex offender. On the one hand, he probably should be, because at that point, if he's a registered sex offender, any sex crime he is charged with in the future will have the word aggravated attached to it. And that will pretty much guarantee that if he's found guilty, he'll go away for a long, long time to the and not to the local jail where he can write letters, but to the really bad place. And knowing that would at least get him out of all of this. So there's that. At the same time, though, making him register as a sex offender might make it difficult to place him in an assisted living program. That could make it difficult. Now, you might be tempted to say, well, are you saying that a sex offender shouldn't have to register so that it could make it more convenient for them or something like that? No. What I'm trying to say here is, if he's placed in the kind of program I'm talking about, like the place wherever he was put, the hospital he was put in for 3 months during the prison stay, which, by the way, I have a sinking suspicion, one of my guesses, for whatever the current courtroom freakout will be tomorrow, I have a feeling what's going to happen is they're going to tell him that the 3 months he was in the hospital don't count towards time served, and he's going to have to do another 3 months. That's one thing I've wondered about. But anyway, someplace like the hospital he was in, that's where he needs to be. So I wonder, I don't know that it would, but I wonder if him registering as a sex offender could make it difficult for him to be placed in one of those facilities. That's only my speculation. I have no idea if it would. But like I said, if he did have to register as a sex offender, it would guarantee that the next time, if he has to register as if he has to register as a sex offender and he's returned to public society, what it'll guarantee is the next time he fucks up, and they will throw the book at him. So finally, it will, the situation will be resolved that way. Obviously, we know Chris Chan has absolutely no self-control. We know that he will not be able to resist his urges and temptations, whatever they are. And we also know that there will be the Weens, there will be the Isabella Jankeys and the Jacob Socknesses of the world out there, sick people trying to get a hold of him and all of that. And that'll be what happens. He will move on to the next darkest thing. And, stop and all of you out there who are watching this with morbid fascination, stop and really consider the existential reality of what we're dealing with here, that we are now in a position where we are talking about we are now speculating on what the next stage of his depravity will be after raping his elderly mother. That if he's given the opportunity to top that, he will. A lot of people have speculated that if Chris ever had a child, he would probably end up fucking it like he did with Barb. I consider that to be unlikely. One, because, as we know, it's highly unlikely Chris would ever sire a child, unless it's like an I Am Sam type situation. But then the other thing is, I actually don't think that would be where his next... I don't think that's who his next victim would be. I really don't. And mainly because for all of his weirdnesses and his depravities, Chris has always been very clear about wanting someone his age or within his age range or older. Even when he was on the love quest, he was always very specific that he wanted to meet a cute girl his age. So he's nothing aside from his own childish behavior, which is, his behavior is childish, but it's not childish in the manner of a pedophile who is, trying to ingratiate themselves to children. It's childish in the manner of someone who's functioning on the level of a child. So I think it's certainly a cause for concern. I don't put anything outside the bounds of what's possible for Chris. God knows there's nothing that's outside his bounds. But I would be less concerned about that. If he had a child, I would be, put it this way, I'd be more concerned about him transgressing against someone else's child, because he's always had a very clear vision of what he wanted from Crystal, a child he imagines he's going to have one day. He's always had a very clear vision of what he wanted out of that child and the relationship he wanted to have with her that's, I don't think, ever included anything sexual. That said, I don't think that Chris should ever be a parent, because probably what would happen, even if he was inclined to fuck his kid, the child would probably die of neglect and starvation before it ever got to the point where he could sexually mistreat it in some way. That's the real thing. I think it would become, Chris is able to provide food for cats and dogs, and that's about the extent of about the extent of the care he can provide for anybody. So I think that I think that's more likely what would happen. I know this is a wide derivation, but I'm kind of thinking aloud as I go. Anyway, those are my thoughts as we approach the final chapter of the jail saga. The thing is, though, the thing is, there's basically two things three if you count the Marilyn Manson case, but there's two things that I've been following in the media lately. One has been Chris Chan, and the other has been the final episodes of Better Call Saul. And it's funny because I watch all these Better Call Saul prediction videos, and not one of them has ever been right. Especially because we know, I'm not going to get off in the weeds on that, but especially because if you watch this most recent episode, the season 6, episode 10, if you watch that episode, you know that a lot of the information that's been getting sent out in the sneak preview clips has been red herrings and trolls from the producers trying to throw us off the scent. Anyway, the point being, there have been all these predictions for Better Call Saul, and absolutely no one has been correct. And by the same token, even though it's reality versus fiction, there have been all of these predictions about what was going to happen with Chris. And so far, we don't, it's easier to predict the outcomes, the possibilities, but so far we've not been accurate by and large. So I say that because, in closing, I also think there's a possibility that somehow, even though, you have to remember, we, the amateur sleuths and all of this, who have been the Christorians who have been trying to piece this together and figure out what's going on, we have looked into it and discovered that the law says that you can't hold somebody longer than the duration without charging them, longer than without trying them, longer than the duration of the crime for which they stand accused. And so we've been going off of the assumption based on that Chris will either have to get out or be committed somewhere in this next thing, this thing tomorrow. I say that to caution you in parting. Don't get your hopes up too high, because it's entirely possible that somehow this gets another continuance. Even though we've convinced ourselves that there won't be another continuance, it's entirely possible that there will be another one. I think I agree with the consensus among a lot of people that the reason there was a continuance this time is because Chris Chan probably lost control of himself, and that's why he went off to the hospital. Probably, we know that he has no capacity to shut up and wait to shut up and not speak until he's spoken to. He has no capacity for that. He doesn't even respect or comprehend the power of the judge within a courtroom. Probably in that third hearing, he probably was sitting there listening to one person after another saying, "He's stupid and crazy. He's stupid and crazy. He's stupid and crazy." And Chris and his childlike naivete combined with his Bob and Barb Chandler arrogance probably started yelling and went off on people, and that's why he had to be educated on courtroom procedure. So whatever it is, we don't know. And it's entirely possible that we're in for a big disappointment, that this just somehow goes to another, the hearing gets suspended on some there could be some statute, some precedent, something that they invoke to come up with an excuse to hold him for another 3 or 4 months. So that's possible, and honestly, I think that's likely, because as much as we are all looking at this like it's the series finale of Better Call Saul, this is not something that's ultimately being done for our entertainment. So they have no reason or motive to draw this to some sort of dramatic and satisfying conclusion. So, yeah, I would just be concerned that we're all getting excited over nothing. And for God's sake, whatever the Sonichu temple or the Sonichu base or whatever it is, I beg of you people, just no.